Greetings, everyone. I'm not Joey Powers because Joey Powers went missing. Something happened late at night. It's called work. He's got a busy job, but I'm Alex Traveling, so I'm going to fill in for Joey, and you guys know Don.
I'm Don Tretler. Welcome to the show.
So this is Best Pictures. So, what we're going to be talking about today are...
We're talking about comedies. I've been trying to watch, I looked up on the internet several times, the funniest movies. And it's one of the questions I have for people all the time. When I meet somebody, I always ask them, what do you think is the funniest movie?
Yeah.
Because what I found is, if you ask people about scary movies, people are going to come up with pretty close to the same list. But when it comes to comedy, we all have different tastes.
Oh, yeah. So for people out there, what do you think the funniest movie of all time is? What's your favorite comedy? But also, comedy is such a broad genre. I mean, it covers there's action comedy, there's dramedies, there's
romantic comedy,
romantic comedies, there's horror comedies, there's comedy, there's parody, satire,
right.
So it goes on and on and on and on. I know. Not only am I annoying Colin, he's flipping me off right now, but I'm also annoying you guys. All right, so
well, let's start off with this. What comes to mind for you when you think about what the funniest movie is?
Yeah, see, that's the hard thing to that's a hard thing to come up with because there's so many comedies out there. You almost get you almost forget half the movies that you see. So when I think of a comedy, I'm thinking like the stuff that I watched when I was in high school. So Something About Mary would be like what I think about comedy. Dumb and Dumber, and
Farrelly Brothers.
The Farrelly Brothers. Yeah, the Farrelly Brothers. So in high school, Ghostbusters, as a kid, but that's kind of like action comedy sci-fi, but that's Harold Ramis and he's been known for comedy. So yeah, it's definitely comedy. So yeah, Ghostbusters would probably be the all-time favorite comedy out there because it's a memorable film. One, I mean, because there's many great comedies you see out there, but Ghostbusters is just one of those 80s classics that still holds up today. When you watch it, it's memorable, not only as a child, but you watch it as an adult, it's still enjoyable. And it's got comedy, it's got sci-fi, it's got ghosts, it's got horror. So I mean, it's a mix of many different things. So yeah, I would probably give it to Ghostbusters myself personally. So what about you?
Well, what I'm finding is I've gone in the process of doing this and trying to find going back and watching the funniest movies. I've gone back to movies that I thought were hilarious. And upon viewing them now, and I don't know if it's just, maybe my taste has changed, maybe something that we were kind of talking about before the show. We were talking about Airplane and how Airplane kind of changed the game.
Yeah.
A little bit. And there was a lot, there were a lot of people that kind of mocked that. They did the same type of a thing. So we've seen it. So we've seen it over and over again. And that's a good example. I went back and I watched Airplane, which I thought was one of the funniest movies.
Yeah.
And I didn't find it nearly as funny as I did.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, I watched it about a month ago, and it wasn't as funny as you thought it was. But it did start the whole. I mean, it was very raunchy too, and it started the whole sort of just sight gag after sight gag after sight gag after sight gag. I mean,
I think it was PG-13 or PG.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that it didn't get an R rating, even though I think it has naked boobs in it.
Does it? Oh yeah.
I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I can't remember.
Plus, it has some of the, some, like you say, it has some really raunchy jokes in it too. About, and I don't know if this would go over now. I mean, it's got, Peter Graves, and he says, he's talking to the guy. He goes, "You've ever been in a cockpit before?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a grown man?"
Oh yeah. Now it's like you start even joking about that and about harassment and or was that the kid? Yeah. That was the kid.
Yeah. That wouldn't have gone over
It
nowadays.
doesn't wouldn't have gone over very well nowadays. But Airplane reminds me of, and this is something I didn't have on my list, but we can also talk about great comedic filmmakers that could just continuously produce like really sort of great comedic work, which is what's his name? Ben. Who's the guy who did Blazing Saddles? Spaceballs.
Oh, Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks films. There we go.
Right.
Sorry. So I would say probably the all-time comedic filmmaker just in the last 20 to 20, 30, 40 years would be Mel Brooks, because he's always done really great parodies. He did Blazing Saddles, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Spaceballs, what else?
Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein, The Producers, right?
Right. What's the one he did? High Anxiety. He did that had to do with Alfred Hitchcock. It was parodying
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock movies.
Yeah. So he's one of those great filmmakers that just continuously puts out really good comedies or parodies or satires based on the time. So.
Well, like
That's
you
a good
said,
one.
I think it has to do with kind of has to do with taste too, and how. And a lot of people don't like Mel Brooks because what I find is Mel Brooks and somebody along the same lines as Woody Allen is people don't like that the comedy. It's very New York centered.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes if you're in Middle America, you don't necessarily you can't relate to some of the stuff that they think is funny.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of Jewish jokes.
Yep.
I don't know if I'm trying to think if Woody Allen is. No, I mean Woody Allen does the same thing, but Woody Allen has his own.
He does the self-deprecating,
yeah.
Role. Even when he's had someone else play the role, they always play the self-deprecating Jewish guy, basically, the Woody Allen character. So.
I think his comedies change too.
Yeah.
If you think back, I mean, we were talking about Marx Brothers, who, you know, they're regarded as pretty hilarious at the time, but like Airplane, it's very, you know, it's visual, it's fast moving.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to really pay attention
Yeah.
to catch a lot of the stuff that they're doing, and they're throwing out. I think it was like based on vaudeville. They're like throwing out a handful of jokes, like boom, 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 and it's like, well, some of them are funny and some of them are pretty corny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's so many of them, just like Airplane was, that you're bound to find something you're going to think is funny.
Yeah, but I would recommend people to actually take a look at Duck Soup, because there's still a lot of great jokes in there, and you're seeing the beginning of the whole genre being kind of created with Duck Soup, and you'll be surprised how raunchy it is, considering it was made in the 1930s, and it moves pretty fast. It moves pretty quickly for a film in the it was done in the 30s, because there was a period like I would have to say, like, for people, you know, I know you don't want to. There were a lot of great comedies, film noirs, films that were done in the 1930s, from like 1930 to but just prior to the war, and some films during the war. And they were pretty fast-paced films. All the Frank Capra films, they weren't really slow-paced. They were very like snappy dialogue, and then the pacing kind of slowed down there after the 40s and into the 50s, and then it came back up a little bit. But yeah, I would definitely recommend taking a look at Duck Soup for people, just to take a look at like an old classic and kind of see, you know, how far filmmaking has come and
Right.
how much hasn't changed either, you know. So if you're into films,
Or even, I missed, they had Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House as the classic movie night this past Wednesday. And we really had to consider, we were like, do we really want to go to the movies?
Yeah,
We were thinking about it. And it got pretty good write-ups, too.
Yeah.
I went back and thought, okay, am I going to be missing a classic if I don't see it?
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Yeah, I haven't
What-
seen that movie either. So.
I do tend to like Cary Grant. I think he's pretty, you know,
Yeah.
as far as some of the older comedy movies, I think he's a pretty great comedic actor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was in a lot of comedic films.
Yeah, that's something I was trying to think about some of my favorites, and I think Airplane. There's some that I think are kind of specific to my own sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, there's a movie I talked about it with Joey on the show. It was directed by Scorsese, called After Hours, and it's Griffin Dunn. He's just this bank employee, and he winds up. This girl gives him her number and says, "Give me a call." And he winds up doing that late that night.
Yeah.
And then it turns out this whole after hours thing, and he doesn't get any sleep and
Is it
goes back to
dark
work.
comedy?
But for some reason, that one really just hit me. And then I always tell people that, and of course, I build it up so much. By the time somebody sees it, it's not as funny to them.
Yeah, no,
To me, it was
I
a
gotta
funny movie.
check that out. Is that Scorsese's first comedy?
I think so. I'm trying to think. I mean, it depends. Do you think like King of Comedy? Is King of Comedy a comedy, or is it a? Do you remember? Did you see King of Comedy with Robert De Niro?
No, I haven't checked that one out.
Oh, probably because it kind of bombed in a way. It really wasn't a big success for Scorsese, but it was interesting. It's Robert De Niro. He's an up and coming comedian, and he wants to make a splash, so he kidnaps Jerry Lewis,
Oh,
who's like a big star.
yeah.
And, so it is. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's also very dark. It's very dark.
Well, De Niro's not really that great at comedy, though. I mean, he's good at playing a straight man, but he's not.
What about The Circle of Trust?
In any. Well, okay,
You're
yeah.
going to be
that's-
outside the
but
circle of trust.
He plays the straight. He's not. He's not a good. He's not like Ben Stiller, right?
Right.
Who's playing the lead comedic role. The everyman. And that was Meet the what was that movie?
That whole Meet the Parents.
And that's
trilogy.
a great comedy, because I think one of the great comedies is, and that's the same thing with Something About Mary. Is that Ben Stiller that was in that? Yeah, it's Ben
Yeah.
Stiller. Yeah, he's really good at playing sort of like the lovable loser, the guy that, we always felt as human beings, that's why we watch or relate to these characters, inadequate in a certain situation. And so like Meet the Parents is, just highlighting that and then making a joke out of it. And Ben Stiller is so great at sort of playing, sort of the lovable loser or the guy that you're feeling inadequate. And it's the same thing why Something About Mary, which is another great comedy, works so well. I mean, because the whole main character is just a sense of inadequacy. I mean, the first scene of the movie is he's trying to impress this girl when he goes in the bathroom and zips his pee-pee in the
Yeah.
and things, and the way he can play off embarrassing moments, because we always have those moments in our lives where we trip and fall and it's embarrassing, or we're always put in an embarrassing moment. And so Ben Stiller is like great at playing those type of characters that are
Right.
put in embarrassing moments, or just the classic sort of comedy of errors. You know what I mean? And you
Well,
really
there's-
feel for the guy too every time both those movies.
There's an interesting thing that you brought up. Is like when we're talking about what's funny. I know that years ago when I first started, learning about acting, I did a scene from a show, and of course I was playing it for laughs. And the
Yeah.
acting teacher was like, "No," he goes, "You got to play it straight,
Yeah.
and it's going to be even funnier
Yeah.
if you play it straight." So a couple of performances we're talking about, like Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro. Well, Robert De Niro's
Well, he
really,
plays a straight character. I mean,
Right.
Ben Stiller, you always have the more flamboyant character, or the one that's the more extreme, character that has major flaws or issues or a major inadequacy that we're relating to, the underdog, feeling.
I think that's what makes it fun. See, I like Ben Stiller too as a comedic actor. And
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons I don't get tired of him, as opposed to somebody like, say, like, I don't know, Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler. Those guys are kind of mugging. They're playing it. They're
Yep.
playing it for laughs, and it gets old. It kind of gets old after a while, and it's really kind of funny when somebody's trying to be straight, like De Niro. Or I watched another De Niro movie that's kind of a comedy. It's the one he does with Billy Crystal.
Yeah.
Analyze This, but they're playing characters,
Oh yeah.
so they're not necessarily, mugging for the camera.
Yeah, no,
which
I-
is what makes it funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, and that's Ben Stiller in all the films that he's in. When he does a comedy film, they're playing a character, and you're playing a character. That's why Meet the Parents and Something About Mary. About Mary does have its gags, but the main character throughout that film, they have real struggles, and they're really trying to attain something, and
Right.
and it's just a classic comedy of errors. And Ben Stiller makes good choices with his comedies. Tropic Thunder is another great comedy. With there's not a lot of people mugging for the camera, or they make a parody of, because they're all actors anyway. So that was the whole comedy of it, is what's real and what isn't, and The whole classic line is like, because Ben Stiller's character, one of my favorite. I think it was one of the funniest moments in the film is he was talking to Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who had basically played blackface in the film, and really went into character to play a black man, and what's Ben Stiller's character is kind of the classic Tom Cruise, sort of the dorkier Tom Cruise character, does action films, but wanted to really. I don't know if you guys know the scene, but had his own personal film that he had made, which was about just mentally disabled, and it was just horribly cheesy, and the acting was bad in the film, and so he was talking to Downey Jr.'s character, who won so many Oscars and was sort of like the premier actor of the day. He's like, well, why? I don't know what happened. I played the disability. I played it exactly the way it should be. And he's like, you went full retard, man. You never go full retard. You only go half retard. Then the audience can't relate. He's like, Dustin Hoffman didn't go full retard, and he won an Oscar. So this is the movie talking. This isn't me, but that was just a classic line, because it's true. Because Harrison Ford had done Regarding Henry, and that just bombed, and that was
Was he mentally retarded in that?
he had memory loss. Yeah, he had to play mentally
okay.
disabled. He went full. He did it fully. And then there was Sean Penn in his movie that they were making fun of. Where
I Am Sam.
I Am Sam, where he went full retard, and it didn't work out because the audience really couldn't relate. So.
Didn't he win the Oscar for that?
I don't think he won. No, he didn't win an Oscar for that. Did he?
I think
I don't think he did.
he was nominated.
He was nominated for an Oscar.
I don't know if he won.
So, but that was a classic line in the movie.
Joey would know. See,
Yeah.
Just Joey knows like who won
Joey-
for what year. I never know. I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought he won that year.
Yeah, Joey's not here. Joey's the stats guy. He's the one,
Right.
looking up the stats, looking up who was in what, and so on and so forth.
So there's different kinds of comedy too. I mean, I know a lot of people really liked those people that I named off: Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
You ask people what they think the funniest movie is, they may name one of those.
Yeah. I thought Jim Carrey was good in Dumb and Dumber. That's a good movie.
Which is one I've never seen from
Oh,
start
you gotta
to
see
finish.
it, man.
So that's one I probably got to watch.
I mean, the characters are real, but they do some really good mugging in that.
I've seen
in that
bits
film.
and pieces of it, and the toilet scene.
Yeah.
I've heard the most annoying sound. But I kind of like those, like Farrelly Brothers, which I can't think of the last time that they've
They
had.
haven't
a
done
Farrelly
anything
Brothers
in
movie.
a while. I don't remember the last film that they did, but they bombed with a Jim Carrey film after Dumb and Dumber. They did a third film with Jim Carrey. I forget the name of it.
Where he's a policeman.
Yeah.
Me, Myself, and Irene.
Yeah, Me, Myself, and Irene.
Yeah.
So that was okay, but it was just it was too. The pacing was just it wasn't
I get
there.
laughs out of them, but I don't think all in all it's a funny. It comes across as a wholly funny movie.
No, it's
there's
not.
moments they have some really good moments,
Because the pacing is uneven on that.
and some of them are like gross out gags.
Yeah, yeah, and it just didn't. It just didn't work on. It was mainly the pacing. So yeah, they haven't done much after that. Like, I think it's something about Mary and Dumb and Dumber 2. They did Dumb and Dumber 2. And that was okay. So, but Dumb and Dumber is definitely a classic, I would have to say.
You said Ghostbusters. Now that's one I haven't seen in a long time.
That's and that's
just-
a comedy. And then, like you were saying, they're playing characters. There's not any mugging going on there. I mean, I just don't know why it works, because it doesn't really, there's no classic character arc or story. I mean, there's a simple storyline with them going out and capturing the ghost, but I mean, just sort of the typical archetypes aren't sort of traditional. So I think it just kind of came together and works for some reason. And even the jokes are there, but it's Mark, everyone in there is top notch. Like who is it? Rick Moranis
Right.
is in it. There's
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd. These are all guys in their prime. And then Harold Ramis, the director of the film. and even the bit parts are memorable in that film. So I don't know. I would say that's like the classic film. You know, if you're looking for, you know, just sort of action, comedy, sci-fi, you know, that's it. It has a mix of all of them. So, and it still holds up today, I think.
You know, I'm thinking is sometimes seeing a movie for the first time, that'll make it funny. I think sometimes going back and trying to watch it again, sometimes you don't find things as funny the second
Yeah.
time around.
Yeah, and that's why the good comedies have to be more than just comedies. They have to
Gags,
be
yeah.
good stories. So, like, Airplane itself might just not last as long because they're just gags. But like films like Groundhog Day, and there's a couple ones I have. Hot Fuzz. Have you seen Hot Fuzz?
No,
I think
that's-
people need to see Hot Fuzz.
I'm writing it down.
So check that out. That's Simon Pegg. It was the same guys that did Shaun of the Dead. But Hot Fuzz is a comedy about it's a comedy about two police officers in England. One's like this Simon Pegg's character. He's like this badass police officer who does everything by the book, who did all the training, but then, you know, he's just too good of a police officer. He's making all the other police officers in London look bad, so they demote him down to some small town in England, and then he has to meet up with like the classic, you know, idiot police officer who thinks policing is all about, you know, action movies, and so that's the dichotomy between the two characters. And Simon Pegg character's a tight ass, and policing's about writing reports and yada yada yada. And the other guy's like, no, it's about shooting guns. But there's something fishy going on in the town. It's just that they have to figure out. So it's a buddy comedy film. They make fun of that. The buddy comedies. There's a lot of good jokes and gags in there, but and the acting between Simon Pegg and the other guy is really great. But the reason, also the other reason why I recommend it too, is that the filmmaker himself shot the film like in a really great way. I mean, there's really great camera shots, you know, because sometimes comedies can just be,
Lazy.
I mean, maybe the performance and the comedy is all there, but in terms of the camera work and you know, in terms of the camera work and the direction and the camera movement, they can get really lazy. They can just do traditional, you know, 3 shots and not, you know, try to tell a story, you know, with the cinematography.
Right.
And this one, they go above and beyond. They have these smash cut sequences in the beginning, and they're also playing off of action films too. So they do a lot of great camera work in there also. So it works on many different levels, you know. So you are getting an action film too, like this. You know when you go see an action film, you're going to get some amazing camera work that you may have not seen before. You know, when you go to a comedy, depends on what type of comedy it is, whether or not they want to do a good job in that aspect too. And Hot Fuzz, you know, checks off that box also. So another.
Jeez, I feel like I'm missing out because I haven't seen Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, I got to watch both of those, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Shaun of the Dead is a comedy on zombie films, and they do some.
Is it the same director?
And it's the same director, and they also do really great camera work. It's just not like it's spoofing. They make you feel that you're in a zombie film, and the fear is there. But as they're defeating these zombies, it's just a little bit more funnier than in a regular zombie film. But there are definitely suspenseful moments, you know.
Right.
Like there's a moment where, you know, he wakes up in the morning like a classic zombie film, and no one's around and the whole world's going to crap, but he doesn't realize it yet. And then the zombies are revealed, and the character's scared, but then he just does these funny things like throw CDs and records at the zombies, and then finally bashes the zombie's head and has some funny line to say in there. So it's and you don't expect these characters to kind of overcome zombies, so that's what kind of makes it funny too. So should definitely, it's like two stoners trying to defeat zombies. It's kind of like that's the on that. So that's why, yeah, that's definitely a good film. You should check that out. Sideways, I liked a lot.
Sideways. That's the one about the wine.
The wine. Have you seen that?
I
Alexander
did.
Payne.
Yeah.
I just thought it was. I mean, it's a comedy in terms of you know, again, two lovable losers. That's pretty much like any good comedy starts off. So Paul Giamatti's character, I mean, he knows his wine, but his love life kind of sucks, and the other guy's just the bro dude that goes off and, you know, wants to have an adventure, and the journey they take through wine. And but I think what makes me remember that movie is they had the motif. He had this really expensive bottle of wine that meant a lot to him, and after he goes through I can't remember the details of the movie, but he goes through the whole romantic journey in Sideways with wine tasting and the whole comedy of errors. I can't remember what happened, but then at the end of the day, he doesn't really get what he wants. And he's sitting at a McDonald's drinking his most expensive bottle of wine in a paper cup. And there's no line in it, but they slowly track in, and he's just sitting there, and the irony of it all, because this was going to be that bottle. He's going to share it for a special moment. And now he's sharing it in his own self-pity, which was classic. So that's why I put that down, because it had that just memorable scene. And I think that's when Paul Giamatti, that's when he came out as
Kind of took off
as a force, as an actor. So,
and the other guy, the bro dude, he was on a television show or something.
yeah, he was on Wings, and he played kind of the bro dude, but he played it 10 times. He played it better
Inside
in this one,
yeah.
because it wasn't just he was just more of a defined character, because he was kind of a bro dude, but they had more of a three-dimensionality to that character. I can't remember. There was a specific scene where I can't remember, but the character was fleshed out. He came off as a bro dude, but I think he was kind of a smart dude, and some other, I can't remember. But the whole playing off the whole poking a little bit of fun at winos, people that are into wine, because Paul Giamatti's character, it starts off with the movie, or he's taking a sip of wine, and I taste a hint of huckleberry with a little bit of oak and a tease of, it's like wine is wine, but they were definitely, so it's definitely a good movie. There was definitely, and the way it was shot too was like the 1980s filming. The cinematography was great, so they didn't skimp on the camera work either,
Right.
on that film, so. I don't know, that's kind of my list right there. I have Heat with Jenny McCarthy and Sandra Bullock. Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
what'd you think about that?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. I thought it was hilarious. I thought Jenny McCarthy as her character with Bullock's character worked really well as like the new age buddy comedy, female buddy
Right.
comedy. And no, see, thumbs down from Colin, because
I don't know. I give it a thumbs.
I don't know what that means. I think Colin, because he's 19-year-old male that enjoys video games. If any females out there,
Well, are you down on Jenny McCarthy in general? He doesn't like her at all. Now I've got.
well, this was before she started picking on Republicans, Colin. So you don't have to hold. You don't care.
Is it a political thing? I really hadn't seen it much of Jenny McCarthy because I never really saw the show like Mike and Molly when she was on television. I never saw the Bridesmaids, but it was on my list because people said,
Yeah,
"Oh,
it's
it's
pretty
hilarious.
good.
You'll like it." So I started to watch a whole bunch of her movies. So I saw Heat. I saw Spy,
Yeah, just okay. But
Bridesmaids. Seems like there's another one I saw. Oh, I know what. The other one where she's like a television. She's a big like celebrity. She sells stuff, and then all of a sudden she gets brought down by a scandal, goes to jail, and then she has to start over with nothing.
yeah,
And she takes over like a Girl Scout troop. I've liked all of them.
yeah, she's like the character she plays, and then Heat. But I'd say Heat, especially that character was classic with Bullock, and the way they just did the whole buddy cop thing and reversed it with women, but also made it funny. And the camera work was, again, like I said, I kind of go for films that are, that.
Did you see the remake of the Ghostbusters? I think she's in that.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen that.
I didn't either. I have
People
no.
paying
See,
that, but
If it got panned, then I steer clear of it. And she just did another one. I don't even remember what it's called. She did a new one. That one got panned.
the one with the Muppets.
Is that what it is?
Or is it? There's one coming out with the Muppets. It's a raunchy version of with the Muppets, or Sesame Street. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I steer clear of these.
The one film that I think a lot of people don't know about, but they should watch, and this is just me because it's a great it's Kung Fu Hustle. Have you seen that
No.
film? You could probably see it on Netflix or Amazon. But remember, Kung Fu Hustle Kung Fu Hustle. It was done in 2000. Write it down. Kung Fu Hustle.
I'm writing it down.
It's a Korean film. Okay, so yes, they're actually no, it's a Korean film, but they did a really good dub job, so you don't have to but it's a comedy, and it's like Korean. If you stuttering here, but there's over the last 20 years, Korean filmmaking has been top notch, and they all the Korean filmmakers kind of model their filmmaking off of American filmmaking, but they've come out with some really great films. I watched one yesterday that's on Netflix that people should check out. We'll talk about that later. But if you watch, Kung Fu Hustle is like this conglomerate of many different types of genres from the director. It's like 1930s gangster film mixed in with a little bit of a musical with Asian martial arts. It's just like this hodge. It's a little bit. It's kind of like the Korean version of Kill Bill. That's what I would liken it to. But it's a comedy, and it's a great comedy, and it's got some really great action sequences in there also. But the reason why I recommend this film is because the two main characters they're two lovable losers. Okay, but it's kind of a little bit reversed. Okay, these guys, the main character, they want to be in this. There's this gang that takes over the town, that has control over the town, and I think they're like the Golden Axe or the Hammer or something like that, and they want to be part of this gang. They want to be the baddest guys out there. They want to be the baddest villains. So they walk into this apartment complex, and they're gonna go steal. They're gonna beat people up. I mean, but you look at these guys, they're just not up for it. Okay, and the problem was the first scene in the movie is they try to scam these people out, and they're not good at scamming people, and that's the funny part. He goes around trying to pick a fight, like trying to act like a big man. He's like, "I'll beat every single one of you guys up," and he points over there, and the guy steps out of the way, and you think he's short, but he's got really big arms. He's like, "No, yeah, another day. I'll you." And then you see that he was sitting down. The guy stands up and he's really tight. Oh no, we can't do. So that's like one of the scenes in the movie. But the whole point is they're trying to be bad, but they're not good at being bad. And he's like the lovable loser with a heart of gold. So the whole journey of the film is he becomes the main hero, but he has to learn. He has to learn why he's good. Why he's not bad. He's bad at being bad. So he transforms into being one of the good guys. So and then all the characters, I won't tell you about the film, but it is kind of cartoonish the way the movie is, the comedy, but the characters, each of the action sequences that are in the movie reveal a new character, and you learn something about the characters through the action sequences. So definitely check that out, and it's definitely a pretty funny comedy. And then the last Korean film that I saw last night, which is one of the first horror films where I actually was yelling at the TV. I don't usually yell at the TV, but you yell on this movie. Have you seen The Train to Busan?
No.
You gotta watch that. That's on Netflix. It's a little melodramatic. It's the traditional disaster story. Just say a father and daughter relationship that's strained. Because the father's not there, and he cares more about his work and himself. But the world goes to crap. It's a zombie film. Zombie virus is struck in Korea, and they don't realize that until they're on the train to Busan, and so that's when finally they figure out that zombies, the people on the train. One of the zombies had gotten onto the train, and the train is still moving. So that's the setup for the story. But there's some really good characters, some really good turns in there. It's a little melodramatic, but it's really character focused. It's really the tension of the characters, and then the situation that they put these characters in, and the confined situations that you're just like, don't shut the goddamn door. And then towards the end of the film, you're like, oh no, you're not going to take out this guy. We don't want him to die. So that's the type of stuff I was saying. Because there's one character in the movie, and I won't tell you who he is. But if you watch the movie, he's a character in the movie where He's the good guy. He doesn't come off as a good guy in the very beginning in the first couple shots of the movie, but when literally the shit hits the fan, he rises to the occasion, and he teaches the main character something a little bit about life. So about what it is to be a good, like every film, but the way this actor played it and the way that they introduced him as a character came off really well. So I would definitely watch that film because it was a horror film I hadn't seen in a while that you're just like,
So you'd seen it
you're
before.
actually rooting for some of the characters and you're rooting for them not to get killed. Like you're literally sitting there like, oh, why are you doing that? Or you know what I mean? So at least I felt that way. So, but I definitely watch it. It's definitely suspenseful. So
Yeah, I'm looking at your list. Here's one you didn't mention. Doctor Strangelove, which is regarded as one of the funniest movies.
yeah, it's Kubrick. It's
Stanley Kubrick, yeah.
it's one of those high-minded political satires. Which, yeah, if we get into political satires, that's why comedy is so broad. So the next time we do a show, we should do like action comedy, satire, political satires. Like, what are the best political satires out there?
And that one's good. But
Romance comedy.
I haven't watched it from start to finish. It's another one of those movies that I know it. I'm aware of it. I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, it's a political satire parody. I mean, there's some really great stuff in there, and all the characters play it straight. And it's shot. It's that's why it's on there, because the camera work isn't lazy either. I mean, it's Kubrick, so there's definitely a sort of movement in the camera, and there's definitely a vision, stylistically, besides the comedy. So
Yeah. Which is an interesting choice for him because if you think about Kubrick, he hasn't really done many other comedies.
yeah, he has
None
except
come to mind.
Lolita, which is a dark comedy. Have you seen that movie?
A long time ago, and I wouldn't have so long ago that I almost wouldn't have even called it comedy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have to watch it.
Yeah,
again.
it starts. It's like that sort of. The Graduate is another comedy, so it's kind of like The Graduate before The Graduate. It's like the 1960s version of The Graduate.
And they've remade it over and
In
over.
terms of
again.
that style of comedy, I don't know what kind of it's comedy that makes commentary. It's satire, but it makes it's not political satire. It's some political satire, but it's comedy that makes commentary about social, cultural commentary. Cultural commentary. It's comedy that makes commentary about culturally what's going on in the United States. Lolita. I mean, it's a pretty dark film. I mean, it's over. We were talking about it with the Harvey Weinstein thing. It's about an overage man, like a middle-aged man who lusts after a younger girl, but it's a comedy the whole time, and it's also making some points about our society, cultural commentary. So, and The Graduate's like that, and there's a lot of great films comedies that they're not political satires, but they definitely make a they're basically commenting on society and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Like, what would it be? Silver. I mean, The Graduate would be one of them. The difference between, I mean, what other great comedies are there that would make social commentary in their comedy? Blazing Saddles, you could say. But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that was a little, if you think about it, it's a little bit of groundbreaking there,
Yeah.
They throw the N-word around,
Yeah.
but not necessarily lightly. I wouldn't say, because the whole thing has to do with
Yeah.
equality. They're not putting down this character. Matter of fact, they probably make him, he's probably the smartest character in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's another movie that was with Tom Cruise lookalike character, and it was with Bill Murray. And we haven't talked about most of Bill Murray's films have been spot on with the films that he's done. It was Bill Murray and this younger kid that looked like it's a very sort of high-end comedy. That's what I would call those high-end artsy comedies, they're not playing down to the bleachers. They're
Right.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Like Strangelove would kind of fall within that. You know, maybe The Graduate would be it's not playing to the bleachers, nosebleed seats or whatever. And this one with Bill Murray is one of those comedies. I can't remember what it was, about school. I guess it wasn't that. The only memorable scene was this character. He's kind of like a Tom Cruise look-alike. He puts on this play that's like all Tom Cruise films. And it has the explosions and like Top Gun.
Is this Rushmore?
Rushmore, yes. There you go.
Oh, all right. Then you're getting into like the Wes Anderson.
Which is sort of Wes
there's
Anderson is a good comedy filmmaker, but sometimes a little bit too high end in terms of comedy. For me, I mean, because comedy should played on any level. I mean, he's doing it more of an arts. What was the word for it? Like Academy Award winning, artsy fartsy comedy.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of like what,
especially with his, with the shot composition and everything like that. It's all there for a higher,
And I love it. I think I like those films because the people play straight, so they're not like
Yeah,
that character in Rushmore. And Bill Murray's character, they're playing totally straight. They're not mugging. It's not a Bill Murray's trying to be like hilarious. I don't even think he is hilarious in the movie. I think he's funny because he's...
the comedy's in the situation of the characters, and who they are and what their wants and needs are and what they're willing to do to get them,
Right.
So, and no, that's a good film. I mean, because the scene that I remember is he's putting on these
Right.
plays with the everything, like they're like high-end productions of Tom Cruise films. It's just such a great visual,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Yes, I guess we should be thinking about that. Maybe start thinking about some genres of comedies, because they're not just one broad...
Yeah, it's such a broad, because every film, yeah. So like high-end art concept comedy, art, one like Wes Anderson films, to the lowbrow, nosebleed, Adam Sandler,
Well, you started to touch upon like foreign films, like the Korean movies that you were watching.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, stuff doesn't translate over. A
Yeah.
lot of times, for instance, there aren't a lot of. I was trying to think of comedies that come from like Europe that we can appreciate, and I know the biggest one that I can think of was La Cage aux Folles, which eventually they made as The Birdcage with Robin Williams
Yeah.
and Nathan Lane, which I don't know if I saw. I don't know if I saw the American version, because at the time the other one was such a big hit that when it finally like hit the movie theaters, I wanted to see that, and and thinking that was funny. But a lot of times they don't. These foreign films, I think Americans don't want to read. We have a thing about trying to read subtitles.
Yeah. I don't have a. Yeah, and that's the problem with is getting past the subtitles.
Right.
But Kung Fu Hustle has a really good English dub version. So they had made the film specific, knowing that it was going to go to the American market, so they dubbed it. But the horror film is subtitles, unfortunately. But maybe the acting is better when you're reading subtitles.
I've even gotten so we've been watching, because my girlfriend's European, so she asks me when we watch a movie at home if we can put the subtitles on so she can catch all the jokes.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't necessarily isn't quick enough to catch it with her ear, so she can
Yeah.
read it. And now, by habit, I'll watch them too,
Yeah.
so I can catch some of the things that are said. And I don't know, it's interesting.
I don't have a problem watching comedies and reading subtitles. I mean, it still reads through. You can tell. I mean, there's a gangster Korean film that I think it was the one that Scorsese. I can't remember. It was been a while that Scorsese modeled Departed from.
The Infernal Affairs.
Yeah, Infernal Affairs. Or maybe there's another Korean film that was. I gotta get the name. I'll get the name and I'll have Joey watch it. But it was comedy cop film, and it was funny even with the subtitles.
Yeah.
I mean, you just gotta read them.
Like, I know for us, like, we think about Roberto Benigni, and I think Roberto Benigni was a lot bigger in Italy, but I couldn't tell you what movies he made in Italy.
Yeah. But I mean, like I think what throws people off on subtitled films, and that's why you shouldn't be put off on that. It only takes about 1 to 2 minutes before you get into the flow of the film,
Right.
and you're not even gonna pay any mind to it. And really, half the time, half of our listening isn't. We're not even hearing what the person's saying, even in real life. So, if the movie's good and the performances are good, you're gonna understand. You won't even have to read the entire sentence. I mean, I was watching that Korean film. You know, after a couple minutes, you're starting to make assumptions of what they say, and you don't even necessarily need to really read, you know, what they're saying, because you're hearing them perform it and you're seeing, so you can make an assumption. So
Right, you
you
don't
get
have to
into
be-
the habit of it.
You don't have to be a quick reader
I think
to do
people
it
are
either.
just thrown off in the beginning, you know, because it is a little. You're trying to watch the video and read the sub, but 2-3 minutes and bam, you're into the movie. And if it's a good movie, then you'll forget that you're reading subtitles.
Right.
I mean,
And you don't tend to miss any of the action.
you don't miss any of it. So I think it's that first 1 to 2 minutes that throw
Right.
people off. But I think the good subtitle films don't start off with a lot of subtitles in the beginning. They start off with a lot of action, and they lead into that. But you know, so I definitely got to wrap it up. So I haven't done this show, so you're gonna have to wrap
All
it
right.
up.
Well, that was our show for the week. And yeah, if you tune in next week, well, I'm not going to be here next week. So there might be a show next week. There might not be a show. We'll see. But you've been watching
Best
Best
Picture
Pictures
without Joey.
without Joe. So enjoy, and we'll see you at the movies.